March 23, 1943. Near the Kasserine Pass, central Tunisia. Just after dawn. The desert is quiet, the dangerous kind of quiet. Cold air clings to the sand before the sun fully rises, and a thin wind drags grit across the rocky plain. Somewhere in the distance, an engine coughs, then silence again. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel stands beside a command vehicle marked with the palm tree of the Afrika Korps. His greatcoat hangs open despite the chill. He hasn't slept much. None of them have. Across the horizon stretches what the German maps call unpassierbares Gelände, impassable terrain. A maze of broken wadis, sharp escarpments, soft sand that swallows vehicles whole. Terrain that no armored force could cross in formation. At least, that's what every reconnaissance report says. Rommel lifts his binoculars, scanning the empty desert. For weeks, this flank has been his comfort. British forces to the north, Americans still learning how to fight, and the desert itself guarding his side like a wall built by nature. The desert doesn't lie. That belief has carried him from Libya to Egypt and back again. Then something moves. At first it looks like heat shimmer, a distortion in the air. One of Rommel's aides shifts beside him, squinting. "Staub," the aide mutters, "dust." Rommel steadies the binoculars. The shimmer sharpens, becomes shape, becomes movement. A low rumble begins to crawl across the sand, not loud yet but wrong, too steady, too organized. Rommel lowers the glasses slightly, frowns, then raises them again. Out of the terrain marked impassable, steel emerges. Dark silhouettes, angular American. M4 Sherman tanks. Not one. Not two. Columns. They appear like ghosts climbing out of the earth itself. Turrets rotating, antennas swaying, engines pushing forward with mechanical confidence. Rommel doesn't speak. He simply stares. Because these tanks are not supposed to be there. They are coming from a direction no commander would choose, a route no staff officer would approve, a path no German intelligence officer even bothered to watch. The desert he trusted has just betrayed him. Around him, officers begin talking at once. Impossible. Our patrols reported nothing. There are no roads there. Rommel hears none of it. His eyes remain fixed on the approaching armor. He has seen bold attacks before, British feints, Commonwealth thrusts that looked dramatic and collapsed within hours. This feels different. These tanks are not probing. They are moving with purpose. And speed. Rommel turns slowly to his aide, a young captain who has followed him since Libya. The man is pale now, watching the Americans grow larger through his own field glasses. Rommel leans in and speaks quietly, almost to himself. "They are not following the map," he says. Then, after a pause, "They are following time." The aide doesn't understand yet. But Rommel does. Because he recognizes the pattern. This is not how European generals think, not methodical, not cautious, not obsessed with perfect alignment of flanks. This is something else. This is momentum as a weapon. Only days earlier, German intelligence had reported the arrival of a new American commander in the sector, Lieutenant General George S. Patton, Jr. Loud, theatrical, pearl-handled pistols. Rommel had dismissed him as a symbol more than a threat. A morale general. A showman. Now Rommel watches Patton's tanks tear through ground his own officers said could not be crossed. And for the first time in months, the desert fox feels uncertainty tighten in his chest. Because terrain doesn't stop an enemy who refuses to ask permission. The Americans are not advancing carefully. They are advancing fast. Rommel snaps orders. Artillery to redeploy. Anti-tank guns forward. Recon units scramble to identify the size of the force, but by the time reports come back, they're already obsolete. The Shermans keep coming. They crest ridgelines, drop into dry riverbeds, climb again. Dust columns trail behind them like smoke from a wildfire. This isn't brilliance in maneuver. It's brutality in tempo. Patton's doctrine is simple: move so fast the enemy never finishes thinking. Rommel senses it now, that sickening realization every great commander eventually faces. He is reacting. Not shaping. Reacting. He turns again to his aide, voice lower now. "This is not an attack," Rommel says. "It is a disruption." The aide looks confused. Rommel continues, eyes still on the advancing tanks. "He is not trying to defeat us here," he says. "He is trying to make us move. And once you start moving in war, especially in the desert, you begin to lose control. Fuel dumps must shift, artillery must relocate, communications stretch thin. Speed doesn't destroy armies immediately. It unravels them." Rommel feels it happening in real time. The Africa he mastered is changing beneath his boots. Not because of better weapons. Not because of superior numbers. But because someone on the other side has decided the rules no longer matter. As the Shermans close the distance, Rommel finally lowers his binoculars. Around him, engines roar, orders fly, radios crackle with urgency. But inside the field marshal's mind, something colder settles. A realization he does not share with his staff. For the first time in the Desert War, the enemy is not trying to outthink him. They are trying to outrun him. And Rommel knows, with a clarity that sends a chill through his spine, that if he cannot slow this man down, the desert will no longer belong to the Africa Corps. It will belong to speed. And somewhere beyond the horizon, George Patton is already moving again. The American column does not stop. Not for dust. Not for darkness. Not even for certainty. As Rommel's forward observers scramble to report positions, the Shermans keep rolling, engines howling, treads biting into stone and sand that German engineers once swore would immobilize any tracked vehicle within minutes. Inside one of those tanks, the air is thick with oil and heat. The crew hasn't removed their helmets in hours. Sweat runs down necks and into collars. The driver squints through a narrow slit of daylight, guided by hand signals and instinct more than maps. Because the truth is, there are no proper maps for where they're going. This route exists only in the mind of one man. Lieutenant General George S. Patton, Jr. Patton is not at the front. He rarely needs to be. Instead, he stands near a dusty command post miles behind the lead elements, helmet polished, posture rigid, eyes alive with movement. He has forbidden hesitation. "Do not wait for perfect information," he told his officers days earlier. "If you wait, the Germans will already be gone." Patton had studied the desert differently than Rommel. Where the Germans saw obstacles, Patton saw time. He knew his troops were green. He knew American units had embarrassed themselves at Kasserine weeks earlier. He knew German veterans considered the U.S. Army clumsy and predictable. So he chose the one thing the Germans could not counter easily: relentless motion. Patton ordered units to advance on parallel routes, not neatly, not cautiously, but aggressively, trusting that confusion would favor the side moving faster. "If we're lost," he reportedly said, "we're still moving forward." That philosophy now barrels across Rommel's flank. German spotters radio frantic updates. Tanks sighted south of Gafsa. Enemy armor bypassing road junction. American units moving at night. At night. That detail unsettles Rommel the most. Night movement in the desert is dangerous. Navigation errors can scatter formations. Mechanical failures become deadly. European doctrine discourages it. Patton ignores that doctrine entirely. He wants darkness. Darkness hides mistakes. Darkness amplifies fear. Rommel knows what nighttime movement means. It means the Americans are not consolidating. They are not pausing to realign. They are gambling. And gamblers are terrifying opponents. At headquarters, Rommel studies situation maps now cluttered with grease pencil arrows. Every few hours, positions must be redrawn. The enemy refuses to stay where logic says they should be. When Rommel requests air reconnaissance, the response is grim. Fuel shortages, Allied air superiority, limited availability. The sky, like the desert, is no longer his ally. He realizes something else then, something subtle, something deeply uncomfortable. Patton is not trying to defeat the Afrika Korps in one decisive clash. He is attacking the idea of German control. By appearing where he should not be. By arriving faster than expected. By refusing to pause. Patton forces Rommel to defend everything at once. And in war, defending everything means defending nothing. Rommel gathers his senior officers. They speak urgently. Proposals fly, counterthrusts, fallback positions, limited withdrawals. Rommel listens. Then he shakes his head. These Americans, he says slowly, they do not yet understand fear. The room goes quiet. That makes them dangerous. He orders a partial redeployment, a measured response, the logical response. But logic requires time. And Patton is stealing time by the hour. By the time German units begin shifting southward, Patton's forward armor has already passed the point they were meant to block. Not because the Germans were slow. Because the Americans never stopped. Word spreads quickly among German troops. Die Amerikaner fahren immer weiter. The Americans keep driving. Even when fired upon. Even when lost. They simply keep coming. Morale begins to fray not from defeat, but from unpredictability. German soldiers had learned how the British fought. They had learned how the French once fought. They had learned how Rommel fought. But this feels chaotic. Uncivilized. Vast. One German officer later writes in his diary. They advance as if chased by something we cannot see. Rommel reads similar reports with mounting concern. He understands now that Patton's greatest weapon is not the Sherman's gun, inferior, in many ways, to German armor. It is Patton's belief that hesitation is deadlier than error. Every hour the Americans advance forces Rommel to commit fuel he cannot replace. Every reposition costs him precious supplies. The desert that once protected him now magnifies his vulnerability. Distance becomes the enemy. That evening, as the sun bleeds red across the Tunisian horizon, Rommel steps outside again. The rumble is closer now. Constant. Uninterrupted. He turns to his aide once more. He is not fighting my army, Rommel says quietly. He is fighting my schedule. And for the first time since arriving in North Africa, the desert fox understands something chilling. He may still win battles, but he is losing control of the war's rhythm. And once you lose the rhythm, you are no longer conducting the campaign. You are being chased by it. Rommel stares west, toward the unseen American columns. Somewhere out there, Patton is already planning his next move, not based on where the Germans are, but on where they won't be yet. And Rommel knows what that means. The next appearance will be even more impossible than the last. The next morning breaks without ceremony. No grand artillery barrage. No formal assault. Just movement. German forward units wake to find the horizon changed. Dust plumes where none existed the night before. American patrols probing from directions that still make no sense. Rommel studies the overnight reports in silence. Sherman sighted near road junctions, the Germans planned to use later that day. American armored cars cutting telephone lines. Supply trucks destroyed behind the lines. Behind the lines. That word keeps repeating. Patton's forces are no longer merely advancing, they are bleeding the rear. This is not accidental. Patton has unleashed something new on the battlefield: tempo warfare. Not perfect coordination. Not textbook maneuver. Speed layered upon speed. Columns leapfrogging. Units bypassing resistance instead of stopping to destroy it. Infantry riding tanks when trucks can't keep up. Patton has accepted chaos and made it work for him. Rommel understands the danger immediately. German doctrine relies on order, clear command chains, precise timing, carefully arranged counterblows. But speed breaks order. A unit that arrives too late might as well not exist. Rommel orders a counterattack near a narrow defile, a textbook response. Anti-tank guns dug in, panzers positioned for enfilade fire. The plan is sound. The execution never happens, because the Americans do not arrive where expected. They pass the position entirely. By the time German gunners realize what's happening, the sound of engines is already fatting behind them. They were preparing to fight the last war's enemy. Patton is fighting the next hour. Reports flood in faster than headquarters can process them. Rommel's staff officers begin arguing, not about tactics, but about reality. Are we sure these are main elements? Could this be a diversion? Where is the center of the attack? Rommel doesn't answer immediately, because he knows the answer is uncomfortable. There is no center. Patton isn't pushing a fist. He's throwing a wave. That afternoon, Rommel attempts to reassert control. He orders a limited withdrawal, short, controlled, disciplined, to reestablish cohesion. But withdrawal in the desert is never clean. Vehicles break down, fuel convoys lag, dust obscures signals. And the Americans do not give space. They press forward relentlessly, not stopping to regroup, not pausing to wait for perfect alignment. German units retreat into movement, movement into confusion. Rommel watches the situation degrade not from defeat, but from compression. Too many decisions. Too little time. A staff officer approaches him cautiously. "Field Marshal, we are losing the intervals between units." Rommel nods. Intervals are where armies breathe. Without them, formations collide with themselves. That night, Rommel writes briefly in his notebook, not strategy, not plans. Observations. The enemy advances without rest. They do not secure flanks. They rely on pressure. Then a final line. Speed has replaced maneuver. He understands now what Patton has intuited instinctively. Modern war is no longer about perfect positions. It is about arriving first, even if you arrive imperfectly. Rommel thinks back to earlier campaigns, the great sweeps across France in 1940, when German panzers shocked the world with their pace. Back then, he was the one breaking doctrine. Now the roles have reversed. The hunter has become the measured man, and the reckless newcomer is rewriting the tempo of war. German soldiers feel it too. They speak of Americans who appear suddenly, fire briefly, then vanish, only to reappear somewhere else entirely. They move like cavalry, one veteran mutters, but with engines instead of horses. As darkness falls again, Rommel receives a final report of the day. An American armored spearhead has crossed yet another stretch of terrain marked impassable. The same word again. Impassable. Rommel closes his eyes for a moment. The map is lying. Or rather, the map belongs to a slower world. He realizes something else then. something deeply unsettling. Patton is not learning the desert. He is ignoring it. Where Rommel adapted to North Africa over years, Patton has chosen to treat it as irrelevant. If ground cannot stop him, if time cannot catch him, then only logistics can. And Rommel's own logistics are failing. Fuel stocks are thinning, spare parts are scarce. Every forced movement costs him resources he cannot replace. Patton, by contrast, has the full industrial weight of America behind him. Unlimited trucks, endless gasoline, fresh units arriving constantly. Speed plus supply. A deadly combination. Rommel knows the truth now, though he does not say it aloud. He is no longer fighting Patton's tanks. He is fighting Patton's clock. And the clock is American. As Rommel steps outside his command tent once more, the desert wind rises, sweeping away footprints almost instantly. The land erases the past. But not the sound. The engines are still there. Closer. Always closer. And Rommel understands that soon, perhaps very soon, he will be forced to make a decision he has avoided for months. Not how to attack, but how to escape. The decision comes before dawn. Not announced. Not debated. Felt. Rommel sits alone inside the dim command vehicle, a map spread across his knees. The lines drawn on it no longer resemble the reality outside. Units marked here no longer answer radios. Others report positions that shift by the hour. The desert has become fluid. He knows what that means. An army cannot fight fluid ground without fluid supply, and the Afrika Korps no longer has it. Fuel trucks are days late. Air cover is sporadic. British pressure mounts from the north while Patton's columns continue to slice from the west and south. Rommel is being compressed. The great danger now is encirclement. Not a dramatic one, not the kind with flags and surrender ceremonies, but a quiet one, where movement becomes impossible and starvation finishes the job. Rommel calls in his senior commanders. His voice is calm, controlled, but different. "We will disengage," he says. No one speaks. Not retreat, disengage. A word chosen carefully, preserving dignity even as reality intrudes. "We will pull east," Rommel continues, "in stages tonight." An officer hesitates. "Field Marshal, Patton's units are still advancing. If we move now." Rommel cuts him off gently. "If we do not," he replies, "there will be nothing left to move." The order goes out. Across the desert, German engines come alive, not in attack but in survival. For the first time in the North African campaign, the Afrika Korps is not maneuvering for advantage. It is maneuvering to stay intact. Patton senses it almost immediately. American reconnaissance reports unusual movement. German columns heading east. Supply dumps abandoned. Defensive fires lighter than expected. Patton smiles when he hears it. "They're running," he says simply. But he does not slow down. This is where many commanders would pause, consolidate gains, reorganize units, wait for clean lines. Patton forbids it. "Don't give them air," he tells his staff. "Pressure is life." So the chase begins. A pursuit across open desert, tanks pushing engines to the limit, trucks bouncing until axles crack, men sleeping in minutes stolen between halts. The Americans are no longer attacking positions. They are hunting momentum. Rommel feels it immediately. Every attempted pause is met by American pressure. Every effort to reorganize is disrupted by probing patrols or sudden armor appearances. There is no front line anymore. Only direction. East. Rommel turns again to his aide during one of their brief halts. His voice is tired now. "We taught the world how to move fast," he says quietly. A pause. Now they have learned. That realization hurts more than defeat. Because Rommel understands this is not a temporary setback. This is evolution. The Americans are not copying German blitzkrieg, they are accelerating it, removing its discipline, keeping only its speed. Patton's advance forces Rommel to abandon equipment he would never have surrendered earlier in the war. Guns without tractors, vehicles without fuel, supplies that cannot be saved. Each abandonment is a small defeat, not on paper but in spirit. German soldiers see it. They feel the shift. The desert no longer feels like home. It feels like exposure. As the retreat continues, Rommel receives word from higher command. Berlin insists he hold ground longer. Hitler demands resistance. Rommel reads the message without expression, then folds it. He knows better. Holding ground now would mean annihilation. So he disobeys. Not dramatically, not publicly. Quietly, professionally. The mark of a commander who understands reality more than ideology. Meanwhile, Patton's forces push forward until even his own officers begin to worry. Supply lines stretch thin. Units outrun radio contact. The risk of overextension grows. But Patton accepts the risk because he senses something fragile in the enemy. Once broken, it cannot be repaired. German cohesion. You can rebuild units. You can replace equipment. But once an army loses its belief in control, it never truly recovers. By late afternoon, Rommel halts briefly near a rocky ridge. He steps out once more, gazing back across the vast stretch of sand they have crossed. He imagines Patton somewhere out there, standing upright, restless, already thinking of the next movement. Rommel does not hate him. In a strange way, he respects him. This American general has done what few ever managed. He has forced Rommel to think defensively. He has made the desert unpredictable again. As night falls, Rommel turns to his aide one final time that day. "Tell the staff," he says, "that the campaign has changed." The aide nods. Rommel adds softly, "The war has found a new rhythm." And he knows with grim certainty that the man setting that rhythm now wears American stars. Somewhere behind them, engines roar again, closer than before. And Rommel understands something that will echo far beyond Tunisia. The age of cautious war is ending. The age of speed has arrived. Night settles over Tunisia like a heavy cloak. The stars burn cold and sharp above the desert, indifferent to the movement below. German columns creep eastward with headlights blacked out, engines throttled low, every sound feeling too loud. Rommel rides in silence. Not asleep, not resting. Thinking. The pursuit does not stop. It never truly does. Even when American units halt to refuel, the idea of their movement continues forward, an invisible pressure pushing at the Afrika Korps back. Rommel understands now that Patton has done something irreversible. He has changed how the enemy must think. No longer where will they attack, but how soon will they arrive. That shift alone wins wars. During a brief stop before midnight, Rommel steps down from the vehicle. The air is cold. His aide follows, offering a cigarette. Rommel takes it but does not light it. For a long moment, he simply stares east. Then he speaks, not as a field marshal issuing orders, but as a soldier acknowledging truth. "He came through where no map allowed," Rommel says. The aide listens carefully. "He did not defeat us with guns," Rommel continues. "He defeated our certainty." The words hang there. A whisper meant only for one man. Rommel knows historians will one day argue over tonnage, divisions, logistics, and air power. But standing here, under the Tunisian stars, he understands the deeper lesson. War is not decided only by strength. It is decided by belief. Belief in your maps. Belief in your assumptions. Belief that tomorrow will resemble yesterday. Patton shattered that belief. From that moment on, every German commander would wonder if the Americans might appear somewhere impossible. That doubt spreads faster than any tank. Rommel finally lights the cigarette. The flame briefly illuminates his face, older now, more worn than when he first arrived in Africa. He exhales slowly. "We taught them," he says quietly, "and they learned too well." The aide says nothing. There is nothing to say. By morning, the Africa Corps will be farther east. By week's end, the campaign will spiral toward its conclusion. Rommel will leave Africa soon after, recalled, ill, exhausted. Patton will move on, carrying the lesson forward to Sicily, to France, to the long road across Europe. But here, in this moment, the transformation is complete. The desert has chosen its new master. Not because he understood it best, but because he refused to let it slow him. As engines start again and the column moves off into darkness, Rommel climbs back into the vehicle. The whisper stays with him. A truth learned too late. In modern war, the impossible is not terrain. It is hesitation.